Welcome back. This is the Round 4 recap from Norway Chess 2026. Magnus Carlsen scored his first classical win of the event, defeating world champion Gukesh with the black pieces. The results carried extra weight after their dramatic Norway chess game in 2025. And it moved Carlsen right back into contention after a difficult start in Oslo. Carlsen later admitted he came into the game with few expectations after 3 difficult rounds. But instead of playing safely, he chose a strange and provocative opening setup. The first key moment came very early, queen to d6. It looks awkward, but it breaks the pin on the knight and takes Gukesh out of normal preparation. Carlsen later joked that the move surprised his coach, his opponent, and even himself. After Gukesh played knight to b5, Carlsen answered with queen to e7, allowing doubled f-pawns after bishop takes f6. This was risky, but it also showed the main idea of the game. Carlsen was ready to accept structural damage if it gave him active play. Gukesh then tried to play ambitiously, but one decision changed the nature of the position. After bishop takes c3, Gukesh recaptured with pawn takes c3. This gave him the bishop pair, but it also damaged the queen side and left his king without a fully safe home. From this point, Carlsen's play became much easier to understand. Keep the king uncomfortable and open lines at the right moment. A beautiful move followed, rook to g5. The rook entered the game from the side, protected the a5 pawn, and started putting pressure on the white king. It was one of the clearest signs that Carlsen had taken over the initiative. Gukesh defended for a while, and even found practical moves to keep the game alive. But the pressure kept growing, and Carlsen did not let the position simplify. The main attacking break came with pawn to f4. If white takes the pawn, the queen jumps to h4 with dangerous threats. Gukesh found the strong defensive move bishop to d3, but one move later, the position began to collapse. After bishop to e4, Carlsen struck with rook to b5. The rook switched across the board, and suddenly black's pieces were entering from every direction. This was the moment when the attack became decisive. Then came bishop to b3, setting up the final infiltration. White could no longer keep the queen, king, and central pawns safe at the same time. This time, there was no repeat of the famous 2025 collapse. Carlsen converted cleanly. Gukesh resigned on move 42, and the win lifted Carlsen from last place into the middle of the standings. The tournament leader, Firouzja, faced Wesley in another important match. Wesley came with offbeat preparation in the Queen's Gambit declined, and quickly managed to slow down Firouzja's usual dynamic style. One modern-looking moment came with king to f2. Wesley kept his king in the center for a while, but this was not random. It supported his kingside pawn structure and followed a computer-approved plan. Firouzja spent a long time before choosing rook takes e1. It was the correct practical decision. Exchange pieces, reduce Wesley's attacking chances, and move closer to equality. By the time Firouzja reached knight to e8, the story of the classical game was clear. Wesley had tried to create pressure, but Firouzja had built a solid defensive setup. There was no clear way through, and the players agreed to a draw. Armageddon was a different story. Wesley played one of his cleanest games of the tournament, controlled the clock well, and eventually stopped Firouzja from winning a match for the first time in Norway Chess 2026. The final classical game featured Vincent Keymer against Pragnananda Rameshbabu. For a long time, this looked like the other game that could produce a classical winner. Keymer's first big moment came with pawn to d4. This opened the center at the right time and gave him the bishop pair with real pressure. From here, white had the more pleasant position. Later, Keymer pushed pawn to c6, and he said afterwards that around this moment he felt his position should be very good. The pawn on c6 restricted black and made Pragnananda's pieces work hard for counterplay. Then came the critical moment, pawn to d5. It created immediate tension, but it also gave white a chance to stay on top with accurate play. Keymer missed that chance with rook takes g6. Pragnananda replied with the important resource queen takes d6, a move that was easy to overlook because the queen looked tied to the defense of the knight on c7. After queen takes c6, black was suddenly close to winning. The momentum had completely changed, and Keymer now had to fight for survival instead of pushing for victory. But then Pragnananda let the advantage slip with queen to c3. The stronger continuation was to push the passed pawn and keep white under serious pressure. The game finally ended by repetition after rook to f8. Pragnananda had only seconds left, so taking the draw was understandable, but both players could feel they had missed something. Armageddon was much smoother for Pragg. He took control early, Keymer fell into preparation, and a decisive mistake ended the game on move 17. The win moved Pragg into clear second place behind Alireza Firouzja. After 4 rounds, Alireza Firouzja remains in first place, but the gap is shrinking. Pragg Ramesh Babu is now clear second. Wesley So is close behind after 3 straight Armageddon wins, and Magnus Carlsen has rejoined the race with his first classical victory. Round 5 begins after the rest day. Firouzja must defend his lead. Pragg will try to keep climbing, and Carlsen will look to build on the momentum from his win over Gukesh. Every point now matters more in the fight for the Norway Chess 2026 title.